Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 2005 Saturn Vue. Up front is a 2.2 liter inline 4, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be sharing this Vue with you today because I love reviewing Saturns, and if you're watching this on the day of its release, today is Saturn Saturday, so I'm releasing a few Saturn videos. I've always really liked the Vue. I've driven two. I've driven the generation after this, and I've driven one of this generation with the manual transmission, and it was terrible. So I'm hoping that the Vue might redeem itself just a little bit here today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form, takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow the Vue for today's video. If you would like to browse their inventory, you can do so in the description below. They always have fun and interesting vehicles. But let's get back to that 2.2 liter Ecotec inline 4 under the hood. Well, it was the same engine that was shared with the Saturn Ion that was out at the same time. It's a pretty bread and butter engine. It was also shared with like the Chevy Cobalt, Pontiac G5, and a more entry-level engine. Now, there was a Saturn Vue Redline that would come with a Honda V6, which I would love to seek out and review one of those, and the very, very rare Saturn Vue Greenline, which meant that it was a hybrid. So, plenty of drivetrain offerings here in the Vue. We're just reviewing the most boring one. Like I said, paired to a 4-speed automatic, GM loved their 4-speeds in this era, and that is quite evident here. It's shifting the car, and I don't have any complaints. Last but not least, about the drivetrain, of course, the Saturn Vue is front-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Saturn Vue? It is a very, very basic driving feel. You do sit up higher than the Saturn Ion, which is very nice, and so some drivers will prefer that, and I prefer that in some cases as well. Visibility is good, steering isn't too heavy, but not light either, and throttle response doesn't really exist because it is that 2.2. However, like I said, they have a 3.5 liter V6 offered if it doesn't cut your mustard. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my fuel and a very optimistic 130 mile an hour speedometer. And off to the right, we have our tachometer and coolant temperature. We get cruise control options on the steering wheel, and it has pretty low slung grips, which was pretty characteristic of Saturn vehicles. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, and that's it. Moving out of the door, we have the latch to get in and out, and lock. That's also it. Moving into the center, we do get 2 climate control vents and the hazard switch, gauge dimmer switch, traction control, and a little Vue logo. Again, in the Saturn Ion, it would say Ion. Here, it said Vue. You know, to keep things straight, I guess. And our Saturn radio, we do have a CD changer, AM and FM as well. Lovely to see that, and that's something you just don't see much of anymore, not only because Saturn is out of business, but a lot of these were swapped out in the late 2000s, early 2010s with Bluetooth color changing things, so it's nice to see the stock unit here. Down below, we do have our climate controls. Off to the left is temperature, and the center is fan speed, and off to the right is where to send it, along with defrost, AC, and recirculating down below. I like that recirculating actually does get a little SUV on it, as opposed to the car having a car on it. Although that is definitely not a Saturn Vue. I have no idea what it is. I would love to hear your guesses down below. We have the shifter in the center, but a bunch of buttons around the shifter. So going in clockwise order, we have a 12-volt outlet, passenger windows, lock and unlock, driver's windows, and power mirrors around the left. Then we do have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Saturn Vue from 2005. And if you remove the liners, it will pass the big friggin' bottle test. It's not the most secure I've ever felt, but I've been driving around all day today with the big friggin' bottle in the cup holder, and it hasn't fallen over, so I consider that a pass for the big friggin' bottle test. Then we get kind of an odd center console. It's almost like spring-loaded. You have to push it down to open it, and it like clicks. Kind of odd there. And then the seats. The seats are cloth. They are nothing special at all. They are manual. And that was, again, to help keep costs low because the View was an entry-level SUV. And that was kind of Saturn's whole thing. So the seats really match that vibe. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. Oh, wow. Okay. We're in the back of the 05 Saturn View, and I said, oh, wow, because as soon as I got in, these seats are really, really cushiony. Like, really, I don't want to say floppy, but like you sink into them like a 70s car. That is really, really nice. These are way more comfortable than the front seats, and that's not usually the case. 9 times out of 10, the front seat is decent or good or whatever, and the back seats are completely forgotten about. Not the case here in the View. Not really too much else to report. I do have a 12-volt outlet and pull-out cup holders, which also passed the big friggin' bottle test. That's pretty nice to see. One thing to note, actually, is that the passenger seat can be folded flat to use as like a workspace. This was also in the Pontiac Grand Prix of the same era, so kind of interesting. Very, very basic back seat. It is what it is, nothing too crazy. Let's hop out and take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. Before we do get to the trunk and cargo space, I love seeing the little dealer tag because that is for sure out of business. So if anyone's ever been to Saturn of Lowell, definitely let me know. But once we are back here, handle just like a regular like door handle essentially for the trunk, but plenty of space. And we'll talk about this with my final thoughts. I love the size of the Saturn View. These are the floor mats, of course, keeping it clean for the next owner. And we do have some storage down here as well that you can pop up and make an organizer. So let me see if I remember how to do this. I love, 2000s cars pre-recession, they had some quirky stuff like this. So you could pop this up and then pop this up, and these arms came out and snapped in there. And then obviously same on this side. And boom, you have a little cargo organizer for the rear trunk. So if you had valuables or like a soccer ball was rolling around, you could put it back here and things like that. So pretty cool. It's not a great angle, but it'll have to do. Just fold that in. Down like that. So pretty neat. Overall, that is the rear trunk space of the Saturn View. No power tailgate, just pull it down. There you go. Now we gotta talk about the looks. And I don't love the look of the Saturn View. However, I will say that it is slightly ahead of its time because in 2005, everything was very blobby and rounded. And this is it's a very squared off SUV. The lights are big rectangles where swoopy circles were kind of the way. I found that kind of interesting. However, at the end of the day, it isn't anything too crazy. So here's a Saturn View from 05. If you were ever curious. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a Saturn View from 2005? Well, I don't think I'm writing any new history books or discovering new land by making this review. I've reviewed Saturn Views before, I've reviewed a bunch of Saturns, and so it's not anything too crazy. But there's 2 reasons I want to make this video. First of all, it has under 80,000 miles on it, so it's a pretty clean example of a View. And as these start to go away more and more, I always love capturing cars that you're just not going to see as much. The second reason is the fact that I really like the size of this Saturn View. And I miss this era of SUVs, back when the CR-V was this size, or the RAV4 was this size, or the Mazda Tribute, and then later CX-5 were all this size. It really felt like just a taller little car. And now SUVs are getting so large, and cars in general are getting very large. I kind of miss it. Because this does feel friendly to drive. It feels charismatic. I have pretty good visibility. I have all the room for my stuff, but I don't feel like I have a grotesque amount of room where parking it at the Stop and Shop is going to be an issue like you would with modern SUVs. I could parallel park this on the street and not worry that a snowplow is gonna Swiss cheese my car. I like that. I really enjoy it. And so there were other great competitors in this era. The Honda CR-V from 05, fantastic. The Toyota RAV4 from 05, fantastic. The Mazda Tribute, pretty good. So this was just GM's take on that class of car. This was just their idea, their shot, they're throwing something at the wall, and it's not bad either. I like the Saturn Vue, and I think you could get these for relatively good deals. They're going to be decently reliable. You'll just have to put up with some GM build quality stuff. There's a lot of plastic in here. If I were so inclined, I'm sure I could start a Blue Man Group-esque style percussion group with all the plastics in here and be pretty successful. So that is something to note. I feel like other cars have a little bit better build quality, but I don't want to shame the Saturn Vue. It's not kind to talk ill of the dead. And with Saturn being gone, I miss it every day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their Saturn Vue for today's video. They have wonderful vehicles, and if you're in the Chicagoland area, please check them out. If you're not, they do offer shipping, so definitely check that out. And if you are in the Chicagoland area and are in need of a detail, they also have a mobile detailing service. So, plenty of things to love from North Naperville Autos, and I appreciate them making today's video possible. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.